right. We'll recite the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Stick with us.
Just hang in there, we'll do it. He's already got the wrong hand. He does them every, there you go.
Take Chud. You've been here long enough to know some of them. There you go.
Okay. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge allegiance to the Christian flag and to the Savior for which he stands, one Savior, crucified, risen, and coming again, with life and liberty to all who believe. Allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word, how to make a lamp unto my feet, and light unto my path, and I will hide his words in my heart, that I might not sin against God.
Let's give God a great big hand. Thank you, Jay.
Do we have any birthdays? Nobody's getting any older, I guess. Anniversaries.
Yeah, Brad and Heather, I saw.
Mhm.
Happy anniversary.
Are y'all gonna stand up? Well, someone mentioned that they would like for us to start doing anniversaries.
Well,
So-
put money into it.
If you want to. Are you that hard up that you can't afford 5 cents? But stand up and we'll sing happy anniversary to you.
Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, whatever. Happy anniversary to you.
And you look what has come along that we all love, our church baby. Do we have any announcements?
Penny drop will be the 16th, I'm sorry.
What about,
Penny drop the 16th.
Has anybody heard from Gladys?
Yes,
Gladys is doing fine. Is she?
not sure if we're gonna make it out today, the other day, but, they don't have the results back from the actual, test.
Okay.
We'll know that next week.
Okay.
Remember my dad, she's having trouble with this foot one time, and they're not sure what's going on with it yet, so remember him. Remember our family, and remember Mikey, our grandson, he started climbing those big old cell towers, and he's gotta go out of town for a month, so you all keep him in your prayers, he'll be safe while he's there.
rough job?
I'd like you to remember a little friend of mine, I'm not gonna mention her name. She has 3 children, she's married, she's lost her RN license, and she's hooked on drugs. Terribly bad. Lord knows who she is, but please remember her.
Remember my mom and oldest brother Roy.
I have a neighbor that, needs prayers really bad. He's lived up our creek now for, this will be the second year. The first year he was there, he was the ideal neighbor, everything, I mean, he was perfect. A couple of months ago, he started withdrawing, he started getting angry for nothing, and Tuesday, we had to have him arrested. And he is, they found a meth pipe on him when they did it, so I would say that's the reason everything has suddenly changed. So he needs your prayers, and he needs them bad.
Remember the Strickland family this morning, J.D. and his family, 2 weeks ago, they lost their mom, yesterday they lost their dad.
Oh.
We'll keep them in prayers. Remember me and my family this morning.
Remember my brother, he's having a hard time with chemo, it's having a reaction to it. Pray for him, and always remember our little church.
Remember my son.
Remember Patsy Stafford?
I desire your prayers, have lost children, have an issue like you remember in prayer. This is National Day of Prayer for the President. Amen.
Amanda drove to Kentucky by herself Friday, and she heard my voice, and said, remember her, and boy, I didn't get with her.
We know.
The car door opens, you'll dive in.
Didn't have no room in the car.
Remember Kenzie and 3 of her friends, they went to Myrtle Beach, and you know how it is with these teenagers traveling. They made it there okay, which I was concerned, but they've got a trip to come back next, Saturday, so y'all remember her. And I am friends with Conway Twitty's daughters, and Joni, the one that you sing with him, is in very serious condition. She had that virus that I had and with the asthma. She's very, very sick in the hospital. They've had to resuscitate her twice now. So I know what she's going through, been there and done that, and she has that rare virus. So keep her in your prayers. I told them that I would request prayer for her.
You know, a lot of times I would request prayer for Chad because of the high water, but today I wanna request prayer for all of them out there on that Mississippi River. They've lost a deckhand, he fell overboard. They've lost barges that's hit the dam, and they're tied up, they've tied them off for 5 to 7 days. But remember those guys, they've got a tough job out there with that high water.
Any unspoken?
Remember mom, she's, struggling with it.
Daniel Simmons and Francis Elton.
Francis made it home, but, Norma's been transferred to, St. Francis for rehab, where she broke her hip. But Francis,
Brother Terry Johnson, I'll be preaching the Bible service at Liberty Church starting next Sunday.
Roy, would you pray for these requests, and everybody pray?
God, a privilege to call upon your name, thankful Father, Son, Jesus Christ. Opportunity that we've come to assemble ourselves together, Lord, together in your name. Be thankful for the visitors that are here with us today, and for the opportunity to share the truth of the gospel. We feel very happy in our heart, Lord, to see the crowd, those that's come along this journey of life. So, Lord, as many requests we have written down, not only in the book, but in our mind and our heart. For those that can't be here, we understand the sickness, and so many times other people have so many other things to do. But it is a privilege that we come today and worship you in spirit and truth. So, Lord, as we do pray for the others and younger generations, and Lord, the older people, Lord, that lead and guide them. for the President of the United States, and for the nation itself, God. We sincerely do pray for the diverse diseases that are spread about in the world today, for those who lend a helping hand, God, for those who assist others in so many ways. So God, as we pray for the church, the place we attend, it's not our church, but your church. So God, supply the need as we go on through the day for our Sunday school, and singing, and communion, all things we come to learn more about you, and be thankful. So bless our day in Jesus' name. Him I believe, in Him only.
Teachers, take your classes, please. Is Emma downstairs?
You sure do.
All right, as they continue to take up some of the offering, we're going to start a little bit in the book of Proverbs, go to Ecclesiastes, and maybe over into a little bit of the New Testament if we have time. I just want to go back into some of Solomon's writings, some of his history. Probably all of you familiar with the very name of Solomon, being King David's son of Bathsheba. And we'll describe a few things as we get on into. And what Solomon had is what a lot of people get off and on is an attitude change. Sounds pretty like something might bring your mind. You ever had a good attitude one day and a bad attitude the next? Boy, Ethel, you're shaking your head yes more than anybody. How you holding up with that, Butch? How's your husband doing? You ain't gonna say nothing about it while everybody's listening, huh? That'll be all right.
No, he'll wait till I go downstairs.
In case you don't know it, I do pick at people a little bit, but they honestly pick back. I try to get it where I get the advantage, but it never works out. Brother Gary, take that Scotch tape off your fingers and bless our offering, will you?
Okay, I got it.
Come on in, Linda.
I'm gonna stretch it out, Father, come to you, Father, tonight. Thank you for another beautiful day. Father, we ask you this offering on your behalf. Thank you, Father, for each and every one here this morning, and one who not working for you, I can take care of. Thank you, Father, for the singers this morning, you really blessed us today.
True,
Bless us every day.
true.
Again, I ask you, help us to make us strong. Just let us do everything on your behalf, but we do ask all this in Jesus' sweet name. Amen.
Amen. Now, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask. We've got a lot of several individuals here, well studied. If I can't answer it, oh, we wouldn't know that, Claire. We wouldn't know that was Lewis or Linda. No.
What's he saying?
Now, the reason I wanted to go back into Proverbs, if you look at the last two chapters, and I'll just touch on this, Solomon didn't write the last two chapters of Proverbs. In chapter 30, the words of Agur, and I'm not going to go through all the technical names here because I'm not the school teacher. I didn't get to sit under Claris when I was younger. So these older names, I'm not very good. But I did get by somehow.
You must have there to help you.
I know. So in chapter 30 of verse 1, this is the fella that wrote this chapter. Chapter 30 of Proverbs. Now, if you go to chapter 31, you also see the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. Parenting, you see. Now, I'm not saying that we know that Solomon, in the history of the Bible, is a very wise individual. As a matter of fact, he prayed for wisdom. The book of James says, if any of you lack wisdom, ask for it. Or pray for wisdom. Now, the reason I bring this out, of all the wonderful Proverbs of Solomon, there's some great moral teachings, along with the spiritual guidance. He gives you some good advice, and I could probably get really everybody involved here when Solomon talks about the women. Now, you know, Solomon made this one comment that it was, now he's got 700 wives. How would you like to handle that, bud? That gets you involved. You better be quiet. You got all this family behind you. You got 700 wives, 300 concubines. Busy man, right? I don't know how you can hide 700 of them. But Solomon said it was better to dwell in the corner of a housetop alone than in a whole house with a contentious woman. Another head on the end. Quick one. I wouldn't let you buy it. You got too pretty a smile to let that go. You want to say anything, Ernie?
Brother, just go right on.
I like to pick on Ernie. He works at a funeral home. If he shakes your hand, don't let him check your pulse. He's got a habit of putting that finger out there.
He still likes to pick on people, you know.
But the reason I went backwards into Proverbs and some of the, I'll tell you, it really is, if you could remember or just read the book of Proverbs, his wisdom is just exciting. It keeps you on track. It's a good moral about your children, your parents, and respect. It's a good book. But then, when we get over to Ecclesiastes, the next book over, Solomon is having a struggle. And if you read this, and I'll go through a few of the scriptures, he's getting a little depressed. He's feeling lonely. As a matter of fact, he looks at everything he's done, all the success he's had, and he says, everything is vanity. That means it ain't worth nothing. You see, what he's lost is the blessings that God has given. His heart, I'm not being judgmental to Solomon, but do we ever go through this, and I'll put it lightly, pity party ourselves? When God be for you, who can be against you? And cast your cares upon me, He cares for you. And He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. But still, is there sometimes you say, God, why aren't you answering my prayer? Or am I not important anymore? Here's what Solomon is saying in the first verse. If somebody wants to read the first two verses for me.
The words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Vanity is vanity, says the preacher. Vanity is vanity. Also vanity.
Boy, that's a real good attitude, isn't it? None of y'all ever, what's the success? What is success? Well, Solomon here, he begins to tell us what all he's done. Somebody read verse 12 and 13. Same chapter.
I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sort of travail hath God given to the Son of Man to be exercised therewith.
Gee whiz. And let me show you. Yes, ma'am. She's fine. No, we love her. She's fine. She's fine. She gets after me every now and then too. Now, so as we scan through chapter 1, and he's talking about all the wisdom and everything he's learned, read verse 18, see how happy he is.
Much wisdom is such much grief, and he that increases knowledge increases sorrow.
You see the attitude change? Now God has blessed him. He's built with his hands. We'll get into that a little bit more, or a whole lot more. Sometimes he's saying all this prosperity and all these things I have, you know what he's lost? His power. His power of overcoming. He's got everything. You know, there's a man who's the richest man in the world in this day and time. His name is Jeff Bezos. Founder, CEO, president of Amazon. He was married, but he had all these billions. Millions make billions, billions make more billions. And then he and his wife got a divorce. Now think of this. A billionaire. Billions there. She gets 45 billion. And he meets up with this other woman. He's a sucker.
Tread lightly.
What do you think, huh?
Tread lightly. It could be a long ride till you grow.
The one thing we know for sure, we didn't get married for money, did we? She had a better car than I did.
Yours is always wrecked.
I just totaled 5. But Bezos, now think of this. So Solomon, and I'm not comparing the two, maybe in a way. Solomon had everything he ever wanted, and he becomes boastful. How that he made all these millions and billions. And Solomon, if we go to chapter 2, now think though, Bezos, the woman that divorces him, is still tied up in Amazon, so she says, I'm going to give half of it to charity. That's a good thing. You know, Solomon describes that the riches of people, you know where it has to go? Down the line somewhere. You can't take it with you. Came into this world with nothing. I'll leave with nothing, right? But there's nothing wrong with prosperity. You look at David. Look at Solomon. There's nothing wrong with having things. Lord, if we get into that of not having things, but then when you get over into the New Testament, and maybe I'll get to the Apostle Paul, he said in Philippians, I've learned to be content with what I have. I've learned to be content. He said, I've been content when I'm full, and he said, I've been content when I was hungry. You know where he had it? He had it right here.
Amen.
He got it right here.
Yeah, Jesus.
You know, when you're happy right here, you're happy all over.
Amen.
Right? When you can get it in here, you can get it all over.
But when you get out of here, then you're miserable in everything you do. Nothing else matters. You're going to be miserable.
Attitude.
Right?
I've said this about working in the coal mines. The years I worked, and I worked with the crews, you get one person who's miserable and he wants to make everybody miserable.
Amen.
You ever get around somebody that just couldn't be happy, and everybody that come around had some way? Larry Dangerfield. Right there, I don't know if I ought to dance, shout, or shake your hand.
Never had it.
Huh?
Roy Wood was never had it.
You know, we've never thrown anybody out of here, Larry, but you could be the first. Some of these old coal miners come drifting in. We brought our dark Pacific light. I love it. You hang around for good company. Let me get back to Solomon. You won't be bored in chapter 2. In verse 1, somebody read verse 1 for me. Chapter 2, Ecclesiastes.
I said in my heart, go to now. I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity.
Okay, so he's saying here, I'm going to prove to you what I've done. Here he begins to boast. You've never been around anybody that just likes to brag, do you? Who said that?
I ain't her brother.
Well, thank you for your part in our Sunday school. I'm afraid to ask you anything else. did. So Solomon's attitude, now he's beginning to say everything he's done. Look, he said, I've had some great works. I've built houses. In 4 and 5, I've planted gardens. In 6, he says, I've made pools of water. And look, here's what he's got. I've got servants and maidens and cattle. I've gathered, in verse 8, silver and gold. Man, he said, look, I have women singers and men musicians. I have it all. Everybody ever think they just got it made? Huh? Anything he said my eyes desired, didn't keep it from me. Works of my hands, man, I've got it all. But look what is the most important, verse 13. Verse 13, somebody read that in chapter 2.
Then I saw that wisdom excelled folly as far as light excelled darkness.
Now you've got a dark place and you flip a light on, that's pretty important, right? Don't we all get kind of alarmed when the power goes off or seems like things are bad? But what is the most important in what he says? You know what Jesus said? Be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. Sometimes it's better to let your mind engage before your mouth does. True?
Oh, yeah.
Don't we
Few of us
sometimes
do
say,
that. Yeah, it's true.
huh?
I said, few of us do that, but it's true.
Have you ever, I shouldn't have said that? Or I'm sorry. So Solomon here, he's got this wisdom. And he's got this through all these things. But look at his attitude. Now remember in Proverbs how blessed he asked God for wisdom, and he gave the example of the young child that I'll just remind you, the 2 harlots that had children, the one overlaid the one, and they went before Solomon, the king, to decide whose child it was. And they began, no, it's my child. The living child's mine. And he said, well, just give me the child. He handed him the child. He held the child up and said, give me a sword. I'll cut it in half. Each one of them can have a child. And the one woman says, kill the child. The other one says, no, save the child, give it to her. It don't matter, I'd rather have the child alive. He said, I know whose it is. I'll give it to her. That's wisdom. Sometimes when you can't make your own decision, instead of struggling with what we're going to do, maybe we need to just pray a little deeper. Maybe ask a little deeper. Maybe look into the Proverbs a little further. Just try to get involved in our mind and our heart. God, what is it? What's the Bible say? Because here Solomon's attitude again, verse 18, read that, chapter 2.
Yes, I hated all my labor, which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me.
And what's he going to do with it?
And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor, wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also found.
So I've done all this work, I have all these things. He began to boastful. Now he's worried about, I'm going to die, and I'm worried about who's going to get it. Boy, that's really something to worry about, ain't it? Lay up for your children. Try to make it as easy or as good as we can. Nothing wrong with that, right? We're going to worry about who gets what. That helped to make him miserable.
Yeah.
You know? Eat, drink, and be merry. Tomorrow you die, right? But I want to kind of look at where he begins to wise up a little bit compared to his life and a sinner's life. Now think about this. Let's go to verse 24. Same chapter. I've said this to the people when they're converted, when they start coming to the house of the Lord, or they're trying to do better. You don't just curse people, throw them out, say they're no good. Give them the opportunity to do better. give them the opportunity that God can show you a better way. All right? Verse 24.
There is nothing better for a man than that he shall eat and drink, and that he shall make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that he was from the hand of God.
From the hand of God. So what did the Apostle Paul say in the New Testament? I've learned to be content. He had learned as a Pharisee how to live the life that he lived. He was converted. And he said, I've learned to be content. Jesus said once, with food and raiment, be there content. That would be virtually almost impossible. Think about it.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich still tastes good.
True, right? What about over here where we have these tragedies right now? These tornadoes came through, the people, oh, I thank God I'm alive. I thank God for my family. And they look out and it's all gone. But what do they say? Thank God we made it. Don't know what I'm going to do. We need to learn, and I'm saying we or you all, sometimes it's better just to sit back and realize, you know what? I've got food, raiment, roof over my head, and all these other things. Maybe they're important, but does it really matter? I know the more you have, the more you got to take care of, right? And the more you own, the more owns you. But there's nothing more important. One thing that is here that is not, that he isn't mentioning very little, and I've read through this a couple of times for the Sunday school, is what is missing is love. True, honest, I love you. My little granddaughter, don't care if she'll in and out of that house, lives right beside us. She's 9 years old and never leaves that house by what she doesn't say, I love you. We've not taught her that. Of course, she knows she's going to get $10 or $5. You know it too, don't you?
I'll tell you what he gives me. He gives me the love for the church.
Bless you.
And things might get a little dark every now and then, doors and everything, but we don't have to flip that switch to turn the light on and everything. When we have him in our heart and everything, and all we got to do is be in the church, because it is the brightest light. In my opinion, that's what makes me feel good.
You know the most important thing in darkness is light, right? When the lights come on. So in this dark world that's described in the New Testament, God describes Christ as the light of the world, right? And the light shines in darkness. Now I'll say this for the church and a lot of the things that go on, they've got some pretty black eyes. But who's to judge? Who is to judge? You see, we have some on the TV, and I'm not mentioning names, maybe. We have one here that's got a nice home, 3 stories. Don't have problems with that. $200,000 Lamborghini. I don't have a problem with that. And just living this wonderful life. Then I've got this guy that's homeless that comes by my house carrying a backpack, and I'll work him. I won't give it to him, but I will work him. I thank God I'm not judging these two. You see what I mean? Whether it's the hierarchy or the poor, needy, thank God that he's going to be the judge. He knows if your smile is a fake one or a real one. Right? He knows. He knows if you're sincere or if you've got another goal. You see, so Solomon and all these riches and everything, he settles down enough to say, what is better? What is the best thing? God knows what's better, right? Because here's the verdict. In verse 25 and 26, somebody read that for me.
Who can he, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth the man that is good in his sight wisdom, and knowledge, and joy, that the sinner prevail, together and to heap up, that
So to the person that is good to the others, or even to the sinner who heaps up and builds all this treasure, it's got to go somewhere, right? It's got to go somewhere. So what he's saying to those that do good and those that work to do good, and just make the prophecy of doing better. Just to work at doing better, you're better than the obvious sinner who may lie, steal, cheat, deceive for riches or extortion or whatever. And then he says it goes to somebody else, right? If anything I'm trying to say, I dare would criticize anybody for having anything. As a matter of fact, I'm not envious that Norma Seabold got a new car. And it's beautiful. It was special ordered. Oh, she had to wait months to get it. I don't want her car, but I'd like to have one just like it.
Smart car, but too much to get you.
What we say in life is, I don't want what you have. But the most important thing is, what do you believe? Do you believe in God? Do you really in your heart believe in God? There's a lot of great things taught, a lot of great things learned. But I don't believe for 1 minute that I come from a monk. Now, I'm just telling you. They might have put the foot on someone's head and jerked their tail out and said it was a man. Brother Scorcher Mile made it clear. He said, if I had any ancestors that hung from a tree, he said they hung from their neck, not their teeth. I'll never forget that. But theology and all these things, they all link together if you study and learn. But the foundation of what I believe is, and this is what I believe, is in salvation. I'm not out to criticize. Look, we've come from, just look. You can pick this cell phone up. Well, you can look on this Facebook. Yeah. Y'all smart people. You can talk to somebody thousands of miles away, and people don't believe they can pray and talk to God. Is there a comparison? You can actually be on a cell phone talking basically another state, another country, at the dial of a phone, and people don't believe they can bow down and pray and talk to a living God. Right? Why is that? Because of what you believe, right? What do you really believe? So, do you believe there's life after death? You don't have to answer me. Do you actually believe that according to this and what Solomon is saying, and we get a little over in the Bible a little further, he talks about the grave, he talks about death, and he talks about the living know they'll die, the dead know nothing, and all those things. But I don't want to drag you down to take you, oh man, he's talking about dying and death, man. We didn't come here for that. But let me tell you about life. God says through Christ, I'll give you life and give it to you more abundantly. I know, don't we all have more than we ever asked for? When you look in the closet, do you have to scoot something aside, or sometimes say, well, you know, this is all I got? We've been there, right? We've been there, right? Which pair of shoes? That's a wonderful thing, right? But how about the ones that don't have? We can't forget that. We say, let's give God praise. Any comments? It's 11 o'clock. I'm not too much on the time schedule part of it, but we're going to have the choir sing, have communion, and a lot of things going on. Is there anything anybody wants to say before we get on with the service?
What made Solomon miserable in the beginning.
I'm not gonna say the 700 women.
No, but it was, getting away from God, going into idol worship, building all those altars and all those things, those women that he wasn't supposed to have.
You shouldn't have said that. Well,
It's scripture.
when you get drawn away, see, we live in this world of spiritual, moral character, right? The one that gets the most attention is the strongest, right? Life is a choice.
Amen. Amen. Even with all the wisdom that God gave him, he still made bad choices.
He made bad choices.
Yeah.
Does that make him bad, though?
No.
You pay, you see, you reap what you sow.
Yeah, that's true.
If you sow a seed of love that God gave, and that's what, I'll bring this out again, without love, biblically, we're nothing.
Drunk. Amen.
If you don't care about somebody, what do you have? That's my granddaughter. All hearts free. Is God watching you?